quiet quitting is now quiet coasting. Or a lot of the clients that are coming to us don't have the skill set to challenge those people, hold them to account. The trust isn't there.
79% of employees are disengaged, which is insane, which isn't going to be great for performance, profitability. On the flip side of that, over 70% of managers feel overwhelmed. If you don't have, mission, vision, but values, then I don't think you can hold anyone accountable to behaviors and performance if you haven't set those out.
Our generation probably love working all hours of the day. That's their mindset, isn't it? Whereas now, people are still effective, but don't want to be working outside of that 9 till 5.
And I think Gen Alpha are the AI native workforce, and Beta definitely will be, if we're all still working and not sat back with robots doing everything.
The cost of developing people is now being calculated against the cost of not developing people. And people are now more aware that actually we need to develop those leaders. And it's far more cost effective to do that than to not do anything at all.
Welcome back to Series 2 of How They Lead. In this episode, we are going to bring you up to speed on what you've missed in the last 6 months between Series 1 and Series 2. Join us in this episode for all things leadership, people performance, and the future of work. Hey, Ben.
Hey, Ben.
How you doing?
I'm good. Good to see you again.
Good
been
to
a while.
see you again. It's been 6 months.
It has, yeah. 6 months. It's flown by.
So we're back for Series 2.
Back with a vengeance.
Back with vengeance. Series 2, How They Lead. Last episode was November 2024.
It was, yeah. Yeah. Time has flown.
It really has. It really has. So should we give everyone a bit of an update on what we've been up to and what we've seen change in the marketplace?
Be a good place to start, I think. What were we doing 6 months ago? November, 6 months ago.
Okay, so let's start big picture. So November, 6 months ago, what's been impacting businesses we work with and leadership development?
Oh, I think the biggest one for us, which will tie into some of our updates, was Trump. So we had the US elections bubbling away.
Who?
Trump,
okay.
Trump. Yes. So we had Trump, the US elections. We had our own elections back in the UK prior to that. We had the Ukraine still going on. Obviously, some of our clients in Ukraine having to move out of Ukraine, so that's impacting us quite heavily. We were gearing up to move into the US as well. So the controversy around Trump getting in and us wanting to back our US businesses, support them. That was just the start of it 6 months ago.
So you just dropped something quite big in there, and I'm not talking about Trump getting into power again for a second term in the US. We can probably move on from that now, and the tariffs that have come in and how that's impacted businesses. But you just dropped in there that we've opened in the US.
Correct.
So why don't you tell everyone a bit more about why did we do that? Why did we do that? Who did we do that with? And where are we at so far?
Yeah, it was an interesting one because we've always supported US clients, but they've always been headquartered in the UK with a US arm to the business. They've always wanted to really get in and support our US clients as a UK business, which has always been tricky. But now we have our US president, Matt Bennett, who, ex-client of ours with GQR, wanted to replicate what we've done in the UK with the US businesses. It was perfect for us. He's been out in LA for quite some time. He received his green card. He knows what we do, why we do it, and how we do it. He's seen the value that we can offer to these up-and-coming scaling businesses. And his leadership performance and background is second to none as well. So a trusted entity for us. He's so passionate about what he does. He's a great guy. He was best placed to take on president of the US and scale for us.
Yeah, really exciting, isn't it? Really exciting. And if I think 6 months ago, we weren't even really thinking. We wanted to move into the US.
It's aspirational, wasn't it?
Yeah, and we've got a bunch of US customers. But as you said, we were having to bounce across the US, support them. We lost out on one deal where we came second, and the two bits of feedback were, can really see the value that West Peak were at, but you don't have a US entity and you don't have boots on the ground in the US. So we've been looking for the right person, and I think it really helped that the work we did for GQR, I think it helped. They were really fanatical about measuring ROI off the back of that leadership program.
And for me as well, it was going to be trying to maintain the culture that we've grown in the UK business, trying to emulate that in the US. And I think Matt was best placed for that. Being an expat as well, he can understand both the cultural differences of the UK and the US, and he can tap into both markets. And he's outgoing, he's adventurous, so shows all the qualities that we look for in our full-time team back in the UK as well.
Yeah, for sure. So another Avenger joins the West Peak Assembly. That also probably ties into we're going to do some US podcasts, aren't we? So with this series, we're going to have UK podcasts fused with US podcasts, which gives everyone an opportunity to learn from leaders at the rock face of leadership today, both sides of the pond, which is super exciting.
Yeah, really exciting. Yeah, and obviously this podcast is to try and give value back to clients, some of our guests, people who are just looking to lead or be better in terms of their performance as individuals, teams, or as a business. So actually tapping into the US culture and the way they work over in the States is going to be great to add value to their performance back here as well.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so Trump, West Peak US is live. We're incorporated. We're trading over there, which is fantastic. And Matt's made some fantastic inroads into businesses kind of across sector. So that's great.
And we've also emulated our business growth breakfasts. So we've had the first of our business growth breakfasts, which for anyone who doesn't know what they are, every 2 months we invite guests and guests of those guests, as well as some of our clients, past, present, and hopefully future, to come and really just collaborate with each other. So we'll share best practice, we'll share common challenges, but across sectors. Quite often you go to these networking events and it's the same people discussing the same things, and normally the same sector. So we invite multiple different people from different sectors to come and share best practice, challenges and solutions. Every 2 months, normally a sellout, 60 CEOs, founders, investors. And we've run that now in Austin, Texas, New York, and LA is inbound.
Yeah, exactly. So US, you're right. Like Austin, we did that crazy week where we did Austin, New York in the same week.
Yes.
Matt's done the second one in Austin. LA's coming up, I think early July.
Yeah, that's right.
And then in the UK, we're now consistently oversubscribed. We cap it at 60 members who come to those growth breakfasts. We're consistently oversubscribed. We just had one which was all about burnout and leading and scaling teams whilst avoiding burnout as a leader and with your teams, which I thought was really interesting. And having Laurie, the CEO of Harlequins Rugby Club, on that panel was really insightful to give us a view on that. So everyone who's listening, jump on our LinkedIn page, jump on our website, find those business growth breakfast pages and links, because one of the reasons, I guess, for that part of our mission and setting those up was, we're fortunate to speak to CEOs, founders, COOs, people in HR, and heads of L&D. And one of the things that I really enjoy asking them is actually who's looking after your learning. Because they're always really focused on, we need to invest in the, the succession planning for our leaders and our people. But actually we know, and we fall foul of it ourselves sometimes, that if they're not investing in themselves, if they're not putting their own oxygen mask on first, then actually they can't, they can't help everyone else. So we'd encourage all of those leaders who are listening to this episode today and listen to the podcast, like seek out those growth breakfasts, because they're an opportunity for you to invest in yourself.
Yeah, and you won't be sold to. No one comes there with any selling intent. It's literally to share value and best practice and try and come away with different ideas, different ways of working, different concepts or frameworks.
Yeah.
And some great networking as well.
Yeah, completely agree. So, right, what has changed? What are we seeing that's changing in speaking to existing customers who we work with for a number of years? We're doing multiple cohorts of leadership programs as they grow and scale, but also those prospects that we're speaking to right now. For you, what's been the biggest shift in terms of like business performance and people leverage?
Yeah, good question. I think there's two main ones for me, and I know the second topic we're going to dive into quite heavily later, so I'll leave that for now. The first one's probably off the back of what had changed last year, and that was almost like the cost of living crisis. People were holding on to their cash before spending. Last summer was not tough, but you could definitely see a drop in spend for ourselves before going into our best last quarter of the year last year, and Q1, better than ever for us, which is great. So people are now spending again. So we've seen businesses really be quite proactive, but we've also seen quite a few businesses still be reactive. And I think that divide has increased. Whereas before, there's a bit of an amalgamation between both proactive and reactive, but now there's a definite divide. We've seen some really proactive companies looking to enhance their leaders at all levels from day one. similar to all of our backgrounds from our elite performance or elite team backgrounds, all of those teams are invested in heavily from day one. Whether you're leading, whether you're in command position, whether that's the police, the rugby pitch, the military, or business. And those reactive companies and teams are the ones who wait until the last minute to then invest in those people and individuals. So we've seen a lot of new businesses come to us, really want to be proactive, invest in future success. They can see growth on the horizon, or they're going through Series A, B, C funding, and they really want to maximize that investment. We've also seen investors come to us now. So not just back businesses, but the investors wanting to maximize their investment. And also the CEOs and potential founders wanting to leave without being tied into those businesses. Those earn-out periods could be quite scary, 4, 5, 6 years. No one wants to be tied into a business of 6 years. They want to take their cash and run. So how do they reduce that earn-out period? So we've seen a lot of different avenues, people coming to us wanting support, not necessarily just the businesses themselves, some of the founders and investors as well.
Yeah, agreed. I think there's three key types of businesses that we typically work really well with and actually reach out to us because they know kind of the value we can deliver from past projects. And you've got, backed businesses, you've talked about private equity, latter stage VC backed portcos. I think we've seen a lot more employee-owned trusts as well, lots of EOTs we're working with because that new generation of board members, senior leaders, they've got the responsibility now to make the most of that opportunity. And then the other bit is businesses that are being really proactive and are either thinking about future sales, exits, or getting their succession planning ready, or are just aware there's a lot of change going on. And for them to be really successful today, let alone tomorrow, they've got to give their people the tools.
Yeah.
And so I think it's really interesting. You're right. We had like a tough trading Q3 last year, and then Q4 after the elections in the UK and the US. Everyone, the majority of people who were like, yes, we want to do stuff, but we're going to wait and see. Then came to terms of actually, we just need to do some work.
They couldn't put it off anymore. Yeah.
They couldn't, and we need to grow our people. And we know that if we grow our people, particularly our leaders and managers, they're going to influence the performance and the well-being of everyone else in the business and our customers. So that's something we need to invest in. So Q4, we saw a massive spike in demand. We're still getting through the delivery of that now, but then that's carried on into Q1 this year. I think for the first time in the 4.5 years we've had West Peak, we're probably as busy in the summer with delivery than we are normally. And normally people are like, we won't do any delivery. We don't want any delivery, any facilitation or workshops in the summer because, people take holiday, etc. But this year, actually, people are saying, well, actually we need to go now. And I wonder if there's a bit there that is highlighting some of the stats that we're seeing coming out for some of the big research partners like Gallup and McKinsey on the state of work right now.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. And I mean, that ties into the stats that I know you've got and you've looked at as well. And that quite coasting and quite quitting as well, which we were discussing prior to starting the recording. And that regrettable loss. I think all the companies that we're working with now are seeing huge attrition rates, almost like never before, which is strange, like 25-30% attrition. And they're starting to uncover the cost of that attrition as well. When you look at all the recruitment costs, the time of a mishire, that black hole of capability going up through while you're rehiring again, it's quite incredible. And how do you plug that? How do you stop that?
Yeah, agreed. And I think those stats. So Gallup released their state of work or state of workforce survey January this year. And just off the top of my head, I think it was like 79% of employees are disengaged, which is insane. It's actually up from last year, and last year was a high, like a 10-year high.
Yeah.
So on one hand, you've got lots of employees who aren't very engaged, which isn't going to be great for performance, profitability, and retention, as you alluded to. On the flip side of that, you've got managers, and Gallup shared that over 70% of managers feel overwhelmed. So you've got a backdrop of geopolitical change. You've got technology, which we're going to talk about in a later episode in a lot more, but I'll say the two letters. You've got AI coming into all of our lives. and business. You've got businesses needed to change, adapt, and go faster than ever before. And then you've got managers who people are pressing pause on developing for the last few years, who are now, really underskilled to be able to lead all the generations in the workforce, not just Gen Z. More businesses are either pulling people back to work, back to the office, or they are saying, do you know what, we are going to get rid of our office space and we're going to go fully virtual, etc. So you've got almost like a perfect storm where if we don't, as business people, work out how we want our businesses to run, how we want our people to be led, what behaviors and processes and performance we accept, then I just think there are a bunch of businesses out there that a friend of West Peak, Lindsay from Geeks, coined when we were out in Austin, which is zombie businesses, which I loved. So those zombie businesses, like, just to give you a definition, are those businesses that think they're alive and doing really well, but actually because they haven't invested in their people, in their processes, and they're not on the forefront of evolving, they're actually, just sleepwalking into business disaster.
Yeah, and that's where that term, which I liked when we heard about it, the quiet coasting. So it was quiet quitting. People were looking for other jobs behind managers' backs, and then they'd just disappear. So that's a regrettable loss. Actually now, quiet coasting. We've been inundated with businesses and senior leadership teams where they've got a nice business. It's a nice company. The senior leadership team are nice. Everyone's just nice. And when they try and push for that high performance or increase the targets or go into that stretch zone, the cracks start to appear, and it's pretty fatal. It's pretty critical. I love that term. Yeah, quiet quitting is now quiet coasting, because a lot of us don't have the skill set, or a lot of the clients that are coming to us don't have the skill set to challenge those people, hold them to account. The trust isn't there. So everyone is just coasting. They don't want to overperform. They're doing the bare minimum, which actually is enough to get by. You're not going to get fired for it, but you're not going to be held accountable for it either.
Yeah, completely. And I think, you talked about attrition and regrettable and non-regrettable attrition. So regrettable attrition, for everyone listening, is, someone leaves your business and you wish they hadn't. That's probably on us as leaders. And we know that time and time again, managers are cited as having the biggest influence on whether people leave a business or perform really well in a business, but also their mental health in and out of work. So regrettable attrition, people leave your business to go somewhere else. You kind of wish they hadn't. But then there's this other bit, which I think you're talking about, which is non-regrettable attrition, which is actually, you exiting people out of your business who either are, like cultural terrorists, toxic performers, or underperformers. And that's the bit that when we're talking to customers and prospects, there's not enough of that, because everyone's really worried about losing the people they've got in their business, because budgets aren't being topped up. If I lose someone from my team, are we going to replace them or not? And I'm overwhelmed at the moment as a manager. So how on earth am I going to manage if I've got a team of 10 and I lose the bottom 20% because they are quiet coasting? And A, I've observed it, but B, I don't know what to do about it.
And if your bottom 20% are quiet coasting and your top 5% are those highest billers, but potentially toxic highest billers, what are you going to do? Because that perfect storm is there. It's on your doorstep. You don't want to necessarily get rid of the highest billers, even though they are toxic, because you know that the other 20%, you wouldn't be able to fill that void if they left as well. So what do? You don't want to get rid of your billers, who are the highest performers, but that is creating this toxic environment at the top. And then you've got your quiet coasters at the bottom. It is a perfect storm. It's difficult, isn't it? Completely.
And I think there's one business that we're working with now, and I love their approach to this. We got to speak to them, and they were interested in a leadership development program for the top 60 leaders in their business. They've never done it before. So this was the first time they were giving us their trust, develop our leaders. They've got massive aspirations in terms of where they want to go and how they want to grow. But in the diagnostic discovery process that we always do first before we build a bespoke program, one of my questions was around their values. And so it was like, right, so what are your values? What are the behavioral rules that you have, the pillars that define how people behave here and how they don't? and they didn't have any. So actually, they took our advice, which was let's work together on creating these business values. So the value statements and the behavioral frameworks that describe what those values look like day to day before we do the leadership program. And that was music to my ears, because actually, foundations first, all of the things that we're talking about to really focus on performance in your business and sweat the resources you've got. If you don't have, mission, vision, but values first and foremost, then I don't think you can hold anyone accountable to behaviors and performance if you haven't set those out.
100%. Yeah, and it reflects another client we were speaking to a couple of weeks ago. It was a peer investment firm, and they were looking to enhance the capability of each of their portfolio by taking not the C-suite or the senior leadership team, but the most upcoming highest performer from the middle management. And they'd identified someone who was a highest performer, but also showcased exactly what you've just mentioned, a true belief in the mission, vision, values, and also showcased exemplary followership and teamship as well, because they were going to be the next CEO, COO. So rather than upskill the top of the tree, they went for the middle managers who are showing actually that will to overperform, but showcase other values as well. And I thought that was great, increasing collaboration, communication, and trust amongst the portfolio, but also looking forwards, that succession planning. Who are the up and coming stars, but not the toxic performers, actually the ones that are showcasing best practice, exactly as just described.
Yeah, and I think that distinction around like toxicity, we've both used the word toxic now, and I think we're basically talking about bad human behavior, not bad humans. We're talking about bad human behavior, and also I think it's important that we talk a bit about psychological safety, because a lot of what we've talked about is around performance and driving results, and all of these things trickle down to the bottom line. But we are aware that actually, the interventions that we deliver and the playbooks and frameworks we give the managers we work with, this isn't about them being arseholes. This is about them driving performance and well-being in their teams.
And that's a good point. As you were speaking, is it us that's created that? Us as in the clients, the businesses that we support? Because no one comes into a company wanting to be an arsehole. Most people don't come into a company wanting to be an arsehole or that toxic biller or toxic performer. But actually, if they're not held to account and they're allowed to roam free and do what they want, and then performance metrics are only commercially driven, not values driven, actually we've created that perfect storm that you mentioned.
Yeah. Have you watched the Netflix documentary that's just come out about Woodstock 99?
No, you mentioned that.
Okay, so it's really interesting, and I'm going to segue this to leadership right now. So everyone watch it because it's incredible. But what I've just got to, there's 3 episodes, and I watched the final episode. Basically, Woodstock 99 was supposed to be a replay of the first Woodstock, like peace and love, etc. Actually, it ended up in a war zone, and everyone completely forgot how to behave as a human being. And I thought, just as you said that, it reminded me of watching the last episode last night. And I was watching it and watching these like people just destroy stuff, set stuff on fire, like fight. It was a riot.
It was on a US Air Force base, wasn't it? I remember seeing this, yeah.
Yes, it was on a US Air Force base, which was probably one of the biggest mistakes to start with. But there was, when they set that up, they, so 250,000 people coming to Woodstock, and they decided not to have any security. They had volunteers who were called like the Peace Patrol, but they decided to have no security. They under-resourced everything. They didn't set any rules of how to behave.
Yep.
No one picked up any garbage. It's in America. No one picked up any garbage. That's for our US listeners. And so what happened was day 1 and 2, day 1 was fine. Day 2 got massively out of hand. Day 3, a riot broke out. And we're talking like cars were on fire. Someone nicked a van and drove it into the rave hangar. It was insane. And when you're talking about actually no one joins a business wanting to be an arsehole, I don't think many people of that 250,000 people went to Woodstock 99 thinking, I am going to start like a riot. But if you observe it, no framework was set up, no behavioral contract was set up, and it spiraled out of control.
And I think as we're talking, I remember, I think I have watched this. It was all about profit and not people this time around, whereas previously it was all about the people and not profit. So they outsourced a lot of the catering, and it was 3, 4, 5 times the price that you'd find anywhere else. The water, I think it was 45 degrees, 48 degrees, and the water was extortionate. So there was riots about that. And it was just because the organisers had gone for profit over people.
Yeah, well, they flipped midway. So again, like completely changed the ethos of it, flipped midway, and you're right on the water. So people were turning up. Bear in mind, this is 1999, paying $4 for a bottle of water, but they outsourced all of the rights for the food. And by day 3, water had gone up from $4 on day 1 to $12 on day 3. And I just think that that's a little microcosm example of actually, imagine your business. If you do not set up, ways of working, values, and set your team leaders, your early stage managers, your middle tier managers, and your directors with a consistent way to enforce, set, co-agree, and enforce the values of how we operate here as a team, both in terms of, we talked about consequence ladders the other day, both in terms of like reward, this is how we consistently reward across the business, and down in terms of performance improvement, this is how we correct poor behavior. We are seeing in businesses, actually, I think leaders who don't have the skill to be able to do that, overwhelmed because they're experiencing quiet coasting, not so quiet coasting, and poor behaviors that they just don't know how to manage right now.
Yeah, and especially with the Gen Z millennial, this generational gap. I think, 2025, 85% of Gen Z millennials were making up the workforce. We've reached that point now, that the tipping point has been and gone. So there's a huge gap between the older generations and Gen Z millennial. How do you lead that? It's almost an unknown there. Like generations from now moving forwards, there'll be a smaller divide, whereas this is probably the biggest divide we're ever going to see. Our generation probably love working all hours of the day. That's their mindset, isn't it? Whereas now, actually, people are still effective, but don't want to be working outside of that 9 till 5. And those two mindsets have never been further apart. They'll get closer together, but I think this is almost like the trough. This is the worst point we're going to get to in terms of that divide.
I agree, and I think it's Gen Alpha coming in next, isn't it? So I think the next generation, we've done Gen Z, we're going into Gen Alpha. And I think Gen Alpha are the AI native workforce, and Beta definitely will be, if we're all still working and not, sat back with robots doing everything. So I think you could almost view Gen Z wrongly as like the problem child of the workforce right now, because there's this unexpected for lots of businesses, lack of get up and go and agency. It's just different. And again, this comes back to, if we are all not constantly thinking about how do I get the most performance and well-being out of the people in front of me, then we're only going to operate to type, and that plays into your conscious and unconscious biases, and we're all fatigued, tired, and under pressure. So there's a lot more consciousness needed, I think, in how we're leading.
Yeah, I agree, especially as you mentioned AI. It is an unknown, but it is here. It's been here for years. Actually, we need to capitalize that and get on board pretty quickly. And a lot of the businesses that we're supporting, it's still years off for them, even starting to look at. It's something they'll consider when it comes in fully, but yeah, it's been here to stay. Well, in Austin, we were hearing about board members, AI board members, having a seat at a board, which is almost unheard of in the UK, but in the US, especially Austin, it's quite commonplace. I thought that was incredible.
Yeah, completely. And I think, and also AI agents having job titles, whether you agree with that or not, like, I think there's an interesting point coming in the next few years where we will have even more diverse teams, setups. You imagine being a team leader and having a team of 5 now. You've got around 5 one-to-ones weekly. Please run your one-to-ones weekly, everyone. Don't do them monthly. 5 one-to-ones weekly. And by the way, those one-to-ones are for your employee, not for you. And if you have 10, you've then got to have 10. But imagine the scale that leaders could be leading with swarms of agents and human employees as well. So you could end up with people going from being an individual contributor. I'm great at marketing. Might not be, but I'm great at marketing. I'm now going to build out a marketing function. That marketing function all of a sudden is not going to have digital marketing, etc. I don't know the other roles in marketing. but you're going to have swarms of AI agents that you're going to be leading, or those people are going to be leading. So that skill set of how you're going to lead people and artificial intelligence is going to be even more nuanced.
And you mentioned that's over the next couple of years. I think it's going to be sooner than that. It's going to be months to 12 months, if not already on our doorstep. In Austin, we're hearing about some of these AI agents with KPIs and metrics, and they were having their own one-to-ones, which is incredible. When we tell clients about that over here, they're like, no, that won't happen for years.
Have you seen that? Have you seen that video of the 3 iPhones laid down on a table like that, and they're having a conversation with each other? So they're talking to each other, like they're prompting each other, and they're doing it in English, and then they change,
swap, don't they? Yep.
They change to a different language because it's more efficient than English.
It's a series of beeps, isn't it? I think.
Yeah,
it's
like beeps and
gobbledygook. They call it something.
Yeah. And I was like, that is a hoax, but I don't think it is a hoax, and I think that's really interesting. So on one hand, we're going to do an episode on AI, so we won't talk too much more about AI. But I think if we come back to what's changed since Series 1, the world's got faster.
Mm-hmm.
World's got more complicated.
Yes.
There's been a lag, I think, in people developing the skills they need to go through change themselves and manage change.
I was going to say, as you're talking, the cost of developing people is now being calculated against the cost of not developing people, and people are now more aware that actually we need to develop those leaders, and it's far more cost effective to do that than to not do anything at all.
Yeah, really great point. And I know we're about to wrap up, so I'm glad you mentioned that, because I saw another stat recently that the cost of replacing an employee, I think last season we were talking about data that was around two times.
Yep.
It's now 2.5 to 3 times base salary.
It's incredible.
So if you've got someone working for you on 50K, like you're looking at £150,000, dollars, euros, whichever country you're in, to replace that person if they leave. Now, why are they going to leave? They're going to leave if your managers and leaders are not good at supporting them, so they don't feel like they're doing meaningful work that matters. They're going to leave if their head is turned. I saw Zuckerberg is now offering OpenAI employees $100 million salaries. So Mark, I'm here for you. Who needs
a head turner right there?
But also that cost of cost replacement is now horrific. So if you've got a 100-person business and your attrition is 20%, that is ridiculous when you could invest a small amount of money on developing your leaders that would not only stop that, it would also improve the performance of your business, lift you up to be able to do higher value work, and increase the enterprise value.
Sold.
Done. You're in.
Done. Yep. You've sold it to me. Yeah.
Cool. So we've got a whole season to go through.
We have some exciting guests as well. We've got some incredible guests lined up. I'm not going to tell you who they are. You're going to have to wait. You're going to have to wait for those guests. But yeah, we've got some great guests. We've got our performance partners from the business as well. So we've got some incredible performance partners who you'll see if you're a client of ours, but you also hear from on this channel, from elite sports backgrounds, elite teams around the world, and some pretty well-known organizations as well. So that's exciting to announce those over the next couple of months. And some of our guests will be our clients as well, and some future clients that we're looking forward to inviting into the West Peak community.
Great. I'll see you on the next episode.
See you there.